Well, hello, Internet. Previously, I showed you how to make scarves as well as hats and blankets and such, and this time I'm going to show you how to make this cute little stuffed animal duck, and I have a lot to do, so let's get into it. Previously, I told you how to read a pattern, and this is the pattern for the duck's head. Basically, we are going to first chain 2 and then put 6 stitches in the second chain, and then we're going to put 2 stitches in each stitch thereafter. And then for the rest of the rounds that you see here, there's going to be 1 stitch, and then you're going to put 2 stitches in the next stitch, and then you're going to repeat each of those 6 times. And I'm going to show you after this exactly how to do it so that you can see everything by hand. Then what you're going to see here is the same sort of stuff over and over again. Except you're going to see on rounds 8 through 16, you're just going to put 1 stitch through each of the stitches available. And then I'm going to show you how to decrease. So you're basically going to put 5 stitches, 1 stitch in each stitch, and then you're going to decrease. And I'm going to show you how to do that as well. And then you can see the last part of the pattern right here. And you can, of course, pause your screen to see this. And also in the description, I'm going to have a link to the entire pattern for the entire duck. Alright, so this is going to be the duck's head. So like I said in the pattern, we're going to chain 2, and we're going to do it just like you see here, just like we did it in the previous videos. And then in the second chain from the top, you can see it right there, I'm going to insert, and then I'm going to create a stitch. And for the head, we're going to actually create 6 total stitches. And you can see here, once again, we're going to pull through, and then I'm going to go down inside, once again, the same place I chained before, and I'm going to pull that through, and you can see there is 2 pieces of yarn on the hook, and then I'm going to pull that through to complete that stitch. And once again, we are going to create a total of 6 of those. And then after I get that done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of those stitches and put 2 stitches behind each of the 6 stitches that I have already made. And you can see I'm using exactly the same stitch over and over again. So I'm going to go in exactly where I went previously and make another stitch, and then do that the whole way around until you are finished. And now I'm going to show you what I mean by 1 stitch and then 2 stitches. But first, I'm also going to show you another trick to keep everything in order. We're going to put our first stitch in. Like I said, we're going to have 1 stitch and then 2 stitches in the next stitch. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get a safety pin, and right after I make that very first stitch, I am going to put the safety pin in there, and that will help me keep track of where I'm going to begin and end. And then you're going to see in the next stitch available that I'm going to put 2 stitches underneath of that. And then I'm going to continue the next time I go through. I'm going to have 2 stitches, single stitches, and then another stitch that's going to have 2 stitches, just like I showed you in the pattern at the very, very beginning of the tutorial. And for the first 7 rounds, I'm going to have that similar pattern. And then on rounds 8 through 16, I'm going to put a single stitch underneath of each of the stitches. And that's going to allow us to create our sphere shape that is going to be used for our duck's head. And now we're on to round 17, and this is where we are going to decrease. But the very first thing we're going to do is we are going to put 5 stitches in to underneath of the first 5 stitches. And then after we get that completed, it is now time to decrease. And how you decrease is you stick your hook right there, in just like you always do, underneath a stitch. But then you pull it on the other side. And what this is going to allow the sphere to do is to come back down and decrease in size. And then you go and get your thread and pull it through just like you did before. And now we are going to set the duck's head aside for a second and focus on the beak. And to do this, what we're going to do is put 2 chains, and then we are going to put 7 stitches through the second chain from the hook, and then we're going to put 2 stitches through each of the stitches, and then we're going to put 1 stitch inside of each of those stitches available for the next 5 rows. And then we'll fasten it off and leave a string so that we can sew everything together. So just like before, what we're going to do is we are going to create 2 chains. So there is 1, and there is the second chain that is coming in. And then for the beak this time, we are then going to once again go into the chain at the bottom, and we are going to put in 7 stitches the whole way around. And as you can see, we're using very similar techniques to make all the different parts of the stuffed animal, and you will be able to use these same techniques to be able to make numerous other different stuffed animals, not only just ducks. And I want to come in and demonstrate exactly what I mean by putting 2 stitches through once again using this orange yarn, because I think it's a little bit easier to see than the yellow. You can see there I put 1 stitch through underneath of that stitch, and then once again under the exact same stitch I'm going to go and put an additional stitch. Okay? Just wanted to do that one more time using orange just to make sure it was 100% clear. And then after you have 2 stitches under each of those stitches, then on rounds 3 through 5, you're just going to put 1 stitch underneath of each of those stitches, and then you're going to leave a string at the end so that you'll be able to properly sew the beak onto your duck head. And this is what it's going to look like whenever it's all done and wrapped up. Okay? Nice little duck beak. And what they mean by fastening off the yarn is you just take the string that remains after you cut off the end and you pull it the whole way through the loop. And then you're going to go and fill up the beak with some polyfill, and then you're just going to get a sewing needle, a blunt sewing needle, and put the string through it, and then just sew on the duck beak wherever you think it looks best. And then finish it off, and then finally tie off the string. And there you go, and now we have a beak on our duck. And now we're going to take the back of the eye like that, and that's going to be facing outwards towards the yarn, and then we're going to insert the little screw that's going to represent the eye, and we're holding that plastic in the back, and then we push the eyeball in, and now we have eyes. And then to finish off the head, push in some fiberfill until it is very stiff and sturdy. And then this is how we decrease the row so that we can seal the bottom of the sphere or the bottom of the duck's head. And that is going to occur in the last 3 rounds that I covered in the pattern. And then for the very last row, I'm actually going to skip stitches. So I'm going to skip 1 stitch, and then I am going to stitch through the next stitch, and then I'm going to skip 1, and then I'm going to put another stitch through, and you're going to repeat this 6 times until you are completely finished and everything is sealed off. And now I'm going to move on to making the duck's body, and how we're going to do this is we're going to create 2 chains, and then we are going to be putting in 5 stitches in the second chain down from the hook. So as you can see, we're repeating the same steps over and over again to make all of the different parts of our duck. So pretty cool stuff. And then just like we did before, we are going to put 2 stitches underneath of each of the 5 stitches that we just created for a total of 10 stitches. And then once again, you're going to put in 1 individual stitch in the very first stitch, and then after you do that, you're going to put in 2 stitches in the next stitch. And rather than recovering that, basically just like before, 2 chains, 5 stitches inside of it, then 2 stitches in each of those stitches, 1 stitch, and then under the next stitch 2 stitches, and then you're going to repeat that 5 times, and then you can see the rest of the pattern there on the screen. So pretty much doing the same thing that we did with the head, except we are not going to be decreasing the body, we're going to be sewing it into the head. And of course we're going to put all the polyfill inside of there, and then also notice how I have the string hanging off the side there. We are going to put the head down on top of that and then sew it. And as you can see, the process is very simple. We're just going to pull the blunt nose needle up through there just like you would think, and then circle around the head until the body is completely attached to the head. And then your duck is getting very close to getting finished. And now we're going to create the wings using the same techniques. Once again, we're going to have 2 chains. We're going to put 5 stitches through the second chain from the hook. We're going to put 2 stitches under each of the stitches for a total of 10. We're going to have 1 stitch followed by 2 stitch in the next stitch, and then, of course, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1 for a total of 15. And then we're going to put stitches, a total of 15, around the entirety of the wing, and then we're going to stitch that to the body, of course. And then we have our feet. Once again, 2 chains, 7 stitches through the second hole away from your hook. And then you're going to put two stitches under each one of those stitches for a total of 14. And then for the next 3 through 7 rows, you're going to put an individual stitch under each of those. And that is how you make the feet. And after you sew on the arms and the feet, just like you sewed the body to the head, this is your finished duck. And in the description, I have a link to how to make the hat if you want to try that as well. And like always, please leave your questions and comments below. Otherwise, till next time.